Not today. We have a lot of Bondo to sell, but to sand. But as I sit out here and I get ready, I look up at that fairing and it makes me crazy that I got to do all this work. I was unable to make that work. Shame on me. Now, as the weather's gotten colder, I have my multiple battery chargers, and every morning I switch them so that basically every other day every bike gets charged. Cheap insurance on these winter months. And we're still not done with the riding season. It's just that we had so much rain that I thought I'd take advantage of it and get a lot of work done on this FZR, which we have. We've actually got a couple of weeks work that we normally, if the weather was a lot nicer, a lot less rain, we wouldn't have got this work done. So my project of the day is that I try to always lay it out in 4-hour increments. Today's getting that Bondo sanded in. It looks like we may even see the sun later today. I can do it outside, avoid all that cleanup. But when I had my coffee this morning, Karen looked at the weather for the week, and we got a couple of riding days this week, I hope. You never know. And I never really get too optimistic about it, but I'm never ready to just end the season full time. I still need a couple of rides before the year's out. And I want to get started early because it looks like the weather's getting cloudy already here. So back in the shop, the Bondo's up by the heating vent, and it's been cold the last couple of days, so that heat has probably cooked it. It should be ready to sand. So before I go outside and get set up with the power sander, actually the shape I think is going to be fine on this. I just want to do my little test. And it's really as simple as it can be. It powders off and doesn't turn to chewing gum. Now, whenever the Bondo is powdering off like this, it'll be no problem to get this sanded, but I want to do all the machine sanding out here because it looks like it's going to rain any minute here. Now, as I'm knocking down all of the high spots, I switched the sandpaper from 100 grit to 400 grit. So we got all the machine sanding done. Now the rest of this we have to do by hand, but this really did come out. I'm impressed. It looks real easy when you see it on the video in a couple seconds. This is hours of sanding. And by doing it out here, we minimize the dust in the shop, and we get pneumonia. Now basically from this point in the job, we have a soft block. The first thing I've always, radius all the edges. I don't want to develop any sharp edges here, or the paint's going to tend to fail in time. And then what I want to do is, I want to work all of the surfaces. See, I know there's a little bit of a gap in here, a little bit of a valley. So what I want to do, I want to try to work that valley with the sandpaper. It's not a real pronounced thing, but it's something you will see. It's difficult getting a grip on this sometimes. There we go. And of course, when the Bondo's just powdering off like that, that's why I like to let it sit up by the heating vent overnight. And why it's never good to rush any of this kind of work. I don't think so anyway. Well, it has the look that we're going to be beating the rain here because we only got about 10 minutes of work to do. But now to get this area perfectly smooth, this is the technique I use with a soft block because it's a curve. I do a lot of sanding in this dimension, then sand in this dimension, then in this dimension, then in this dimension. And you can see how little Bondo is left. And it was one of the goals of this whole job was to have, I bet there's way less than a spoonful of Bondo on here by the time I sand most of this off. But the thing you never want to do is just go in one direction. You want to constantly change the direction when you block sanding. If you watch some of the custom car shows, you see how highly skilled that job is. It's really not as easy as, it's easy on a flat, it's not easy on a curve. So we'll see when we get the ultimate clear finish on here buffed out, we're going to find out if, we'll find out if we know what we're doing. Anyway, the goal was to beat the rain and get this ready to attach the side pieces, and I think we're coming up on having that right now. It's good to be out of the cold, and I think it's time for a coffee break. That part, that was a lot of sanding to get it to this level. You never really appreciate how much sanding until you go to do one of these. So this time of year, this is the key to life. Come in out of the freezing cold, all full of dust, vacuum yourself off, and have a big cup of coffee. So good to be in out of the tundra. Anyway, the next step on this today is these pieces. Now what's always happened since day one with this bike, these parts have never lined up, and obviously they're 30 plus year old parts, and this bike of course has had a life like me, rough around the edges. So what I want to do is I just want to tack glue these in place for right now. I want to see how that's going to work. In fact, I don't even have to tack glue. I'm going to put some tape on it and take it out to the garage and make sure it fits, that we're close. Because here's the issue. I don't know if this is going to need to go up or down or 90 degrees or what. And I want to get the dimension front to back exactly right. So I guess the easiest way to do this is just mock it up with tape. Now by using thin strips of Gorilla Tape, what allows me to do is each time I put a piece now in between, because I have a joint there, I can tighten up the joint by doing this. So it's compressing the gap. Now what I'm hoping this is going to do is I can run the glue down in there when I go to do the joint, push a little bit of that glue down in there, put this back in position, and then I would absolutely have to do a test fit. So I'll just tack this in place with some thick CA right now. So this is just going to be just to tack this in place and maintain this angle that I think is going to be critical. So I don't want to make this a permanent joint yet. So let me just run some thick CA down in there. I think this will serve the purpose. Because we're going to build this up with the thixotropic resin, that'll add plenty of strength too. So by having this that I can move it open and close, now let me get the angle right, and it's about a 90-degree angle, just roughly. Kick it off and see if that'll hold it, just temporarily. And some of these bolt holes, we're going to fill them in with Bondo because I know we're not going to need these two bolt holes. That's for sure. If this works the way I want, this will make this a lot stiffer. This part never lined up right from the day one. I think it was just old, like me. So now what I'll do is basically the same thing on this side. Then I have to take it outside. Because see, if this angle here is not exactly right, I still can break this part loose relatively easily and redo it. And then I have to really be careful dressing this seam up nice. This is going to be a focal point, just like the front of the bike. I want the light to run its, and boy, because it was so bad before, I want this to really be one of the focal points of the motorcycle when I'm done. Okay, time for a test fit. Now I can see, it looks like what has to happen here is these parts have to remain parallel. They can't be up or down, but the test fit is going to tell us. And they're just tacked in place now. So after doing a test fit, it's a good thing we did, because these two parts, even though the bolt, I'm trying to line this up, even though the bolt would line up, this part has to come further back. for this to be a nice fit. And actually this whole part has to go back maybe 1/4 of an inch. And I think that'll take care of that. So what I'll do is I'll mark the front, how far back that has to go, roughly 1/4 of an inch. Break the temporary glue, move it back, and that should set our part. And this is why I do these test fits. A lot easier to do it now than later. Now in the course of the day I went back and forth 4 or 5 times here, but I wanted this fit to be as good as I could get it, because I'm basically using the parts that are on the bike already. I know that'll be for my alignment, and I need to make sure everything is going to fit right now before I put the final sanding and the final finish on this part. And if I don't finish this today, I'll finish it tomorrow, but I want all these fits to be as good as I can get them right now. Well, I put a little mark on it so I know that part has to go from there. I need to go back basically about 1/4 of an inch. Okay, time for another round of fit the part to the bike. And this is really time consuming, and I don't even care if I don't finish it today. I want this to be as good as I can make it, because there's going to be a lot of hours go into putting the finish and the paint work on this, and I don't want to compromise it where the parts don't line up. Well, we finally, after all this time, we have the bolts in. The alignment is really within the limits of what's acceptable. Here's the thing, we're going to have to make a bracket for up here, and I had the old bracket because these don't exactly line up, but that's okay. Right now I'm not worried about that. That I can make a little bracket for, because I do have to, this part used to come off. Now that means I'm not going to need this Bondo hole. I can Bondo in these 2 brackets, and because this part is a lot more rigid, I'm hoping it's going to get rid of some of the vibration on the windshield. We won't be cracking windshields, but if we do, we still have that carbon fiber one. So actually with all the this was a lot of work today. Wow, a lot of back and forth to get this right. And this is going to be requiring just a little bit of trimming on that to make that as nice as possible, and a little filler piece in here. So my overall point here today is that this stuff just cannot be rushed. Unfortunately, it just takes a lot of time. And when it starts taking more time than you thought it would, it's a good time to just say, well, I'll allocate another day to it. And no matter what angle you look at it from, you'd like it to be that the fits are as good as you can make them. The next thing is with a Dremel tool, I'll take that extra material off, put the extra material, glue it in here. I have a little bit to get that fit a little bit nicer. And I think I'll have just enough time to get that Fixotropic glue in there and make that a semi-permanent seam. Put a little carbon fiber reinforcement in that. And then of course, once that's dry, I'll redo the test fits. Okay, we're going to mix up some of the resin. This is a high strength resin, and we're going to make a little fillet down in there and put some fiberglass reinforcement in there. This will just thin the resin just a very little bit, but it's still Fixotropic. Fixotropic means it will not, if you put it on a wall, it will not drool down unless you overheat it, in which case we're going to try not to overheat it. But this should really give me a nice joint, and when I set this aside to dry, what I'll do is I pretty much have that angle in my mind that I'm looking to replicate, because that angle is going to be a critical thing. But actually all these fits and finishes in the final product, this part of the job, like a day like today or yesterday, actually this whole week, messy, dirty work, filthy, but boy, when you're done, and And if you order the right part and it fits, you don't have to do much of this. So this ends a really productive day. It's going to sit under the heating vent. Now what will happen is I have a hook up here. Once that glue totally tacks up, which is about 20 minutes, I can put it up there and I look over our project. The fender is pretty much ready to paint. This is all aligned, holes drilled. We have to do the windshield yet, and I'll make an update to my priority list of what I still have to do. I am just thrilled with how much of this I got behind me during this spell of really terrible weather that we've had. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you've picked up some good information. And after looking at some of these parts that I thought were going to be a real problem to salvage, I really feel positive about the whole project. So again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.